bottom left. Spawning in the blue, this is NXZ.
And over on the other side of the map, it is the red Zerg, the man currently in the UK. It is RiSky.
Yeah, so it looks like a nice, calm early game where both of these gentlemen are going to go, you know what? No cheesy pulls straight off. We're just going to expand and go from there. And I'm actually curious to see how this is going to pan out. We've seen a bit of NXZ over the weekend and yesterday as well. And we've seen that he's really liking that muta flavor in all matchups at the moment. So I'm
Yes.
wondering if that might be the pathway for him in this series as well.
Yeah, I've seen him go Spire pretty much every game so far. Occasionally, he's I think maybe one game, or maybe I missed some of his other games where he might have done it. But I've also seen him go towards Hydras in other matchups as well. But yeah, especially here in the CBC, of which we've seen a couple of games from the man. Um, we probably I wouldn't be too surprised to see him just go for the spike. He likes to go for a very fast lair and go for the defense in towards the second, getting himself a baneling nest to be able to deal with any ling aggression or anything like that, and then just transition into that mid game where he can get a lot of mutas and try to take over the game from there.
Yeah, that might be the way to go. I believe he pulled that out against I want to say Mio.
I think it was
Um
Demi and I think he had two Zergs in his group, didn't he? I think,
I thought so.
because it was
Oh,
Enter in
short-term
the
memory,
group
man.
for the Protoss, and then it was Mio and NXZ in the other group, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
so it would have been against Mio. I'm pretty sure he went for the fast spire both games.
Yes.
The thing is that RiSky is a player who's, I feel like, much more likely to punish you and much more effective with his decision making and kind of thwarting your efforts.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, time will tell. At the moment, it's very standard play from both sides. Going for the quick 3 hatches. RiSky is right away going for that Bane Nest. NXZ delaying it just a little bit more, but it's still a similar setup here.
Yeah, this is identical to a couple of games that I've seen from NXZ here. As for RiSky, just getting into the main, having a little bit of a walk around, seeing if he can find anything that's gonna sort of offset the fact that he's probably expecting this spire play by running around, see if there's a roach warren being put down or anything of that nature. But he does pretty much see, I would assume, everything that he's expecting to. Seeing these hatches, he's seeing that baneling nest going down, the gas mining, etc., etc.
Yep, Elliot Evo here from RiSky, and he's going to turn up the heat a little bit. 12 lings coming out there. Similarly, with NXZ having scouted that, he's going to get a few of his own and bank on a couple of banelings there to help him through. In fact, going up to 5, preferring that over too many more lings, considering that RiSky already has his banes morphed. So he's going to be waddling into the fray here in just a sec. Queen's on the front lines for NXZ, ready to start targeting down those banelings.
Yeah, so you do see RiSky. He's actually going for missile attack and droning behind this. So this is really all there is for RiSky. He's just trying to apply a little bit of pressure. Nice one ling, getting rid of one of those banelings pretty early on. And RiSky, all he's done is just run in there, apply a little bit of pressure, try to force out some additional units from NXZ. And in the meanwhile, he's got a little bit ahead in terms of the worker count.
Yes, indeed. And very careful play from RiSky not to overcommit or lose too much there. He's trying to pull a cheeky move with these banelings coming in for the right, with the links coming in from the left. But NXZ has dived across the map. It looks like RiSky just missed it. And he's actually going to lose a couple of drones here.
Yeah, very nicely done. A bit of a ling run by is going to do quite a bit of damage. Has even pulled the majority of these lings back so RiSky can defend, but already quite a lot of damage here from NXZ. He's picking off a few workers. He's still at a worker deficit for the time being. RiSky is going to come back with the lings and clean this up. As we've seen in a couple of NXZ games so far, the man is going for a much quicker lair than his opponent. So keen to see if he is going to go for that spire. But as it finishes up, he actually really hasn't been mining as much gas just yet. He is now only starting to add the geysers, but RiSky's going to start running across the map with all of these speedlings.
Looking for some Bane hits, no huge ones just yet. 2 Banes of RiSky's own come in, and now NXZ is actually running out of links. He's going to have to make a few more units. He's waiting for these roaches, so just buying some time here. But I have to say, RiSky's looking pretty crisp so far. He's had at least 10-ish of a worker lead. Pretty much this whole time, his droning and unit production has just been coordinated a little bit better. I think NXZ perhaps investing a little extra into those lings.
Yeah, and he's not going for this very, very quick spire like we've seen in a lot of those other games. Instead, he's much more heavily committing to this roach style. Same thing on RiSky's side of the map as well. Just +1 attack for both players. You're seeing a fair few amount of roaches being pumped out while they drone up a little bit. Both of them just sitting around 50 workers, not wanting to go too ham on the workers too early on. And Nidus actually coming in here for NXZ, so he will potentially want to try to start going for some of these multi-pronged roach harassments and roach attacks, be able to try to split up the focus of RiSky and deal some damage to him.
Very, very nice. Okay. So RiSky has actually scouted that. I was wondering why he had units patrolling on the edge of his main there. It seemed like super big brain plays, like he's somehow figured it out. But having spotted the Nidus, he knows that there's a possibility, so he's going to make sure that he doesn't get caught out there. NXZ's actually going straight for the attack here on the right side, while popping the Nidus up just behind as a reinforcement point. And can he take a good engagement here?
Yeah, he's just getting straight up in the face of NXZ roaches, but he's not able to deal with that Nidus, so the reinforcement's going to be a little bit quicker for NXZ as you do start to see him move in towards this third base, deals with that Spine Crawler pretty quickly. And he's got a bit of a roach lead here. You do see the drone pulled off the line to try to deal with this attack, which means that there's going to be a fair bout of economic damage done by NXZ as he starts to commit even further, more and more reinforcements streaming out of this Nidus firm.
Yeah, he's going hard here, taking the opportunity to go into the main with the Nidus as well, recognizing that RiSky had to pull his roaches back, including the ones in the main to defend there. So he's going to go for a few more in the main. In fact, he may just put all of them in here. And he could take a favorable engagement. He's sort of catching them as they're coming in. And Nidus again going down in the middle of the map as another point to push from. And this is actually looking pretty good for NXZ.
Yeah, he's got a concave on the top of this ramp here, so that's giving him a pretty favorable fight until the rest of the roaches start to stream up the top of the ramp. I think NXZ, it's kind of job done for him. He's done a lot of damage to the workers, but with the reinforcing roaches coming through, he's feeling like he still has a decent fight here, a decent chance to be able to just try to continue to apply pressure, if not force the end of the game. Does fall back to the Nidus. I'm wondering when he's going to pull out here, but it never really seems like the numbers are dwindling and more roaches starting to pop out of this Nidus firm. He hasn't really had a reason to fall back just yet, and even though he's secured this worker lead, he's still just committing to fighting in the main here.
Yeah, really nicely done. It looks like RiSky's just about to sort of deflect him, and then suddenly 3 or 4 more roaches come out of that Nidus, and he lasts just a little bit longer. 4 more drone kills there. He's now got a 20 worker lead over RiSky, which honestly I didn't see coming. I thought RiSky was decently well defended here, but 4 roaches going into the third base. They're going to get the queen. They could get a couple more drones there if he wants to dive back in, but this puts him in a really good position. The one thing RiSky's going to have going for himself is that the +2 missile attack just finished. But to really abuse that fact that you have the better upgrade advantage, you kind of need the money to spend on roaches so that you can actually do a push that's more convincing.
Yeah, and NXZ is just using these Nidus worms so nicely, splitting up the attention of the Red Zerg consistently, always just pushing different parts of the map, going into the third, then re-Nidusing in the main, and that's going to be a little bit too much for RiSky to handle. What a bloody game out of NXZ, Jesus. Like, we haven't even seen him go for that roach style yet, and he looks so convincing doing that in the ZVZ. I've seen him go for the mutas time and time again. That time pulling something entirely different out up against RiSky. That was fantastic.
Yeah, really awesome, and a great way to dodge being predictable, having stuck to that same style over the last few games that we've seen. And I'm actually blown away. That was brilliantly done from NXZ. He just knew how to execute it. I was a little bit concerned because his drone count was looking lower. But as we sort of saw the game progress, suddenly there's 5 overlords in the production tab, right? And that's a big tell that a big swell of roaches is coming. And we saw this Nidus push. And the great thing about the Nidus on the front lines here is that it mitigates some of that defender's advantage.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a massive thing in ZVZ that, you don't want to have to be streaming your units across the map. It's sometimes you can get away with that reinforcing that way if you're in that like sort of Zergling, Baneling style, because the Lings can make it pretty quickly across the map. But especially if you've got, other kind of units like your roaches, even if they have roach speed, it can just be the difference between you winning some fights and doing damage and sort of being pushed away by the other players. So utilizing those Nidus networks to be able to get quicker reinforcements, to be able to go for that multi-pronged harassment. It was really great play from NXZ, and I think that's it's a decent sort of approach on a map like this where you do actually have to expand further away from your base. You don't have those 3 sort of tight expansions that are closely grouped together. Instead, you do have to run further down towards the south if you want to be able to defend multiple locations. So being able to pressure up towards the main and the third with that Nidus network is just fantastic for splitting up your opponent's attention when he's trying to defend.
Yeah, really well done. And RiSky just not quite making it out of that one alive. I thought he had a decent setup there. If that game had gone longer, if NXZ hadn't have done as much damage as he had, I think RiSky could have taken it with that +2 upgrade, because that's the real killer and one of the key sort of things in ZVZ. If you've got the +2 timing, you've got the world in your hands at that point. But yeah, really nicely done. And I think kind of the nail in the coffin there was NXZ getting into the main base, because when you do that, you force your opponent to fight up a tiny little ramp into you, and it's so hard to get that favorable engagement. You kind of just got to take the hits while you muscle your way up into your own base
Yeah,
and try and
he had
get
the
your own
concave on the
concave.
top of that ramp. That was massive.
That's exactly it. So we're just about ready to go. We've got Everdream loaded up for map number 2. And I'm kind of expecting, based off that first game, that it might be another fairly standard looking game. 3 base first, 3 base into the Roach Ravager. It's a very safe way to play. And I think that's the sort of style that we've seen from RiSky a lot as well, because his macro's kind of been enough to overcome most people.
Yeah, but if you do get disrupted, if you do get the aggression from your opponent, sort of throwing you off balance a little bit, you can't really get to that state of the game where you got that strong mid game and you get the overwhelming supply lead. So I'm keen to see if NXZ is going to continue mixing in this aggression, or if he's going to feel comfortable and confident now that he's 1-0 up.
Yeah, well, hopefully he is feeling that confidence a little bit and he can ride it into game number 2, which we are in right now. And in the bottom left, he's the Red Zerg, known as RiSky.
And in the top right position, we do have the Blue Zerg, NXZ. 1-0 in this series, looking phenomenal. And look, I can't say I'm even surprised, because the man has looked absolutely rock solid in ZVZ over the whole qualifier through champs and now moving into this match. And even, first game of the series, we've seen him go nothing but Spire, and he goes for roaches with the Nidus and just gets in there, fearless, applying pressure to a pretty fearsome opponent. So I feel like he's got a good read. I feel like he's feeling comfortable and confident today. And I want to see him capitalize on that and be able to qualify in towards that winners club.
Comfortable and confident is a nice way to put it. One thing NXZ told me not too long ago is that, putting the ego in Ryan Ego Jones is that he kind of gets on a roll. And once he starts winning, that's when your ego comes into it a little bit, and you sort of get almost jealous of your own success. You're like, yes, I need more. And you go from like, yeah, I'll have a go, it'll be fun, to like super serious, you must win. So yeah, obviously, however he practices and his outlook on these games is paying off so far, having himself sitting in a nice 1-0 up position for this series. But obviously, can't call it too early because RiSky, he's got plenty more up his sleeve, and his play is generally very, very smooth, very tight. And I wonder if he'll switch it up this game.
Yeah, I'm keen to see it as well. Honestly, it's not too bad of an approach. We see it from a lot of different esports competitors in a lot of different games that sometimes, to be able to get that peak performance and be able to be a fearsome competitor, you do have to sort of put on a bit of a persona, and you do have to sort of trick yourself into being in that competitive mindset. And half the time, we see a lot of very, very talented players who are very polite, eager people in real life, but when they play in the server, they look like absolute bosses. So, it's all about getting into that mindset.
RiSky just nibbling away at this hatchery a little bit here. And the Lings of NXZ humoring him with a bit of a dance there. Both of them, again, going into that Bane nest. However, NXZ is not committing to the more defensive play that we saw last game, potentially because he had that Roach Nidus play in mind. This time he's making a lot of Lings.
Yeah, he's sort of pulling them up towards his main base, but RiSky with just 2 Lings does dive in there and see all of those Lings, which NXZ was trying to hold back, trying to hide from his opponent to be able to hit a nice timing. So RiSky's done a fantastic job there of just gathering the info that he needed to make sure he's nice and prepared for this Ling swarm.
Yeah, I like that RiSky's dropped the spine in his natural there, realizing that he's a little bit behind on the Ling production. However, he does have his own Banes out here, so the Bane hits could change everything. A good trade there for both sides. And he'd love to get that cluster of 3. Just wants to make sure he doesn't lose too much here. More Banelings being morphed for NXZ. He's going to try and pick off this one and barely doesn't get it. Nice defense from RiSky so far. More Banelings coming in from NXZ. Takes a hit to all 3 though with 1 Baneling. Not ideal.
And he's flooding more and more Lings. You see 24 in the production tab. He's not looking to let up on this aggression anytime soon. You do see RiSky. He's trying to run by with a couple of Lings towards the south side of the map. Maybe try to run in and do some economic damage. Some nice Bane hits in the main. Do take out a few of the workers for NXZ. And he's continuing to just run a few Lings into these Banelings that are being continually morphed by RiSky. Trying to take good enough trades so that he can put himself in a position where he can snipe this 3rd hatchery.
Beautifully done by NXZ. I actually didn't see him sneak those into the main base. He's going for the Queens. Got to be careful because the Banes are showing up there. He's taking a moment to defend his 3rd base from RiSky's cheeky little run by there as well. And I think that's a confident move from RiSky to be comfortable enough to slide those Lings across the map. More damage being done here from NXZ though. Nice snipe on that Baneling.
And you see RiSky, NXZ's making nothing but Lings and continuing to apply this pressure. RiSky, every now and again, when he's feeling comfortable, he's drip feeding a few extra drones into the production tab. Obviously, none there right now, but every now and again, after he takes a good trade, he's going to build a couple more drones. And this is the first time I've seen NXZ actually go for five drones, 6 drones here. So this last attack, he's going to see what he can get done with it and try to get his economy rolling behind it.
So many potential Bane hits there, and they're just filtering through each other's units, trying to look for the money Bane hit on all those Lings. They haven't found it. The Queens are actually going to take out an Overlord for NXZ and supply block him. Oh, NXZ, careful. He's actually going to run past straight into the natural by the looks of it. He's actually going to, he tried to squeeze out some drones there. He's going to have to make a few more Lings, I think, just to defend here. RiSky has a fair bit left over in terms of his Ling count.
Yeah, NXZ, he's got himself a 10 worker lead at the moment, and RiSky is droning behind this, but like you said, he needs to make sure he has enough back at home so that he doesn't sustain the economic damage and he can try to hold on to this slight worker lead that he's got himself at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit overconfident there, morphing the Banes right in his pathway. And this is actually a pretty good engagement for RiSky. He's able to take out all the Banes, and suddenly NXZ is in a bit of trouble. He needs more Lings out to save these workers and to keep the momentum up here so that he doesn't lose the lead that he got himself. Already RiSky's taking off with that drone count, transitioning into roaches behind this. only a few more lings in production for RiSky.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just weaponized those lings that he made to be able to defend against NXZ's aggression initially, just to be able to apply some pressure, force NXZ to build some more units and to potentially snipe a few workers. And now RiSky is the one who's 10 drones ahead at the moment. He's starting to go in towards that roach tech. As for NXZ, he's getting himself melee upgrade as well as building that lair. So maybe we will see the muter style from him this time around.
Yeah, it definitely sends muted signals because you don't typically commit to the Ling army as much otherwise. There are some wacky styles around it, but typically mute is kind of the thing everyone likes at the moment. One overload for RiSky getting picked off at that third base for NXZ, and a scout gets in for RiSky as well. Very nicely done. He sees the timing of the lair. He also sees that Evo Chamber's upgrade, and he hasn't seen a Roach Warren, so he might be able to gather what's going on here. And I think he's got a good setup with the 3 base and a lot of queens.
Yeah, so there's the Spire for NXZ. After success with the Roach style in the previous game, he's definitely been mixing things up, putting a lot more pressure on RiSky this game, which, you know, it's had mixed success. I think RiSky's in quite a comfortable position at the moment. He's definitely droned up at this point, saturated all of his bases. Nice scouting time and time again. Always RiSky just feeding a couple of lings across the map, which initially allowed him to prepare for that aggression right at the start of the game, as well as now he's spotted out this Spire and continuing to apply pressure with these ling run bys, trying to catch NXZ off guard. And he's really pumping up in terms of the supply there. You can see just how much supply lead and army lead you're going to get when you're going for roaches and your opponent's, you know, holding on to that money so they can get those muters going. But it seems like RiSky's actually going to start moving across the map, and he wants to try to find this timing before the muters can really get up.
Yeah, this forces NXZ into a position where he has to make lings and spines because he's not going to have enough to defend otherwise. And the other thing is that he won't necessarily be able to make muters straight away because he's got to spend the money on some lings. He's actually going to try and go for the counterattack, seeing all these queens here, but there's a lot of transfuse available. He might be able to isolate some of these roaches, but this is going to be a really tough hold for NXZ. And it's even too much just by seeing that in the middle of the map. GG comes out.
Yeah, he knows that he can't hold that. Like that was just insane. That RiSky's able to spot out all of that information time and time again. That's what really won him that game, is the fact that he's just drip feeding lings into the main. He sees that massive group of speed lings right at the start of the game, allows him to prepare and not really be able to take too much damage. And then as soon as he scouts into the main, he sees that Spire, he sees how much gas NXZ is mining up. He doesn't see a single Roach Warren, as you did mention before. He knows exactly what NXZ is going for, someone who already is going for the Spire tech a lot of the time, and he's very well aware of what the timing he needs to hit there to be able to just apply the pressure before the muters are even a factor. And it seemed like he was very well aware. I mean, he's marching queens across the map off of creep. He's very clear that he wants to end that game right there before the muters are even a factor.
Yeah, really nicely defended from RiSky. Yeah, I kind of liked NXZ's choice there, but as the game went on, it felt like you're just not going to get enough damage on this guy, right? RiSky, his micro was pretty good there. Bane trades, you know, pretty neck and neck on both sides, but I think the key thing that you pointed out early on was that trading and the trading the lava production, sometimes going for just a couple of extra drones instead of lings, and that sort of put him ahead. And you do that for a couple of minutes and suddenly you're a lot ahead over your opponent. So unfortunately NXZ ends up in the position where he just doesn't have enough money to defend against that big attack. And it, like you said, you know, just a little bit too early for their muters to even join in the fun. Even if they were finished, I'm kind of not sure if that's enough with the queens.
Yeah, exactly right. I think a lot of queens there for RiSky. They helped him with the defense, and then he's even just chosen to move him across the map. And I think that's pretty interesting to mention in terms of drip feeding the drones, because I feel like that's a difference between someone that's really confident with their ZVZ and knows exactly what position they're in, because it takes a lot of experience and a lot of that comfortability in terms of the matchup to know when you take an engagement, you take a trade and it goes well or it doesn't go well, how many units you need to make, and whether you can actually squeeze a couple more drones out, whether you can invest into that economy. That's what I really like to see. It's a bit of a difference maker from time to time in terms of how confident you are in that matchup and how much you really understand it on the deepest possible level.
Absolutely. So let's go check out game number 3 on Death Aura. And over here in the top left position in the red, it's RiSky.
And over on the other side of the map, representing Legacy Esports, it is going to be the man, NXZ.
The old drone drip feed reminds me of the ZVZ of old in this region, because that really was the separation between the best and the sort of B team level Zergs. Even in all matches, there was kind of a meme for a while that like the response to everything was just make drones. That's all you have to do. Lose 10 to Hellions, no worries. As long as you kept droning that whole time, not a problem, because you'll be back up to 60 in no time. So it kind of reminds me of a remnant of that era. However, this game's going to turn out a little different.
Yeah, you are going to see a much earlier pull this time around. So NXZ is going to go very quickly for that speed and try to apply some link pressure. He wasn't able to hit the timing in the last game. Maybe this time around, he's going to be able to find that timing and be able to put a bit more pressure on RiSky. I mean, yeah, that drone drip feed. I remember when I was trying to, I started off playing Protoss and I was trying to learn Zerg and play ZVZs and stuff like that. And playing Zergs that are better than me, I always remember going back through my replays and just like looking at the work accounts and just thinking, what the hell? Like, when did he get, 10, 15 workers ahead of me and just losing workers right and left and things like that. So it can definitely be a pretty big difference maker. You're already seeing RiSky is going to be nice and safe. I actually love this positioning at the top of the ramp there with the pull and the spine. He chooses not to complete it though, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could do that so comfortably here on Death Aura. And I guess because the base is a little bit smaller, your creep reaches far enough out. I've always wondered about those far out pull positions because I'm like, like it does give you vision, but to me that's so scary to put it out in the open. But again, this is that confidence we're seeing from RiSky. Very calm response to what he's seen from NXZ so far. He's got his own links out on the map, and RiSky has actually made more than NXZ. NXZ didn't commit too much to any aggression just yet. He's going to have a much faster speed, so he still has that option. However, he instead dives straight into the lair.
Yeah, so I think this is like the very quick spire this time around from NXZ, I would imagine. They're both going for the Baneling Nest. Already a preemptive spine crawler at the natural there. This is a map we saw NXZ play in champs, and he liked to play this style quite a lot. You do see, I love the building placement for RiSky. Like even the top of the ramp where he was going to put that spine crawler, he could have like balled that for a cream with a queen. Over on the right side, he's just got that whole thing walled off, so that's really going to annoy the Ling pathing if you want to try and go around the right side of that base. That's really sick.
Yeah, he's very well set up, and also he's, I think, coming in, seeing a spine, seeing the defensive positioning of NXZ, he's going to be like, yeah, I reckon I know what you're doing. He's going to try and get in there and go for the scout nonetheless, which is one thing that I really like about RiSky's play. He leaves nothing up to chance. He's not guessing. He's going to try and get that confirmation that he needs to just prove to himself that it is going to be Spire. But back at home, he knows he's going to be under no threat. So just look at him hammer out those drones.
Yeah, I think, he might not have spotted out those gas geysers. He might not have seen the spire, but just the fact that there's no third hatch and he sees NXZ preemptively spine crawlering, and he should be well aware of what kind of style that NXZ does like to play. I wouldn't be surprised if RiSky is already like reasonably aware of what this is, even if he hasn't 100% seen the spire. And I think the fact that he's so comfortable to just pump out drones and quickly saturate that third base really indicates that Yeah, he probably is quite aware that this is probably Spire. He's only now just starting to get his lair though, so he's not. I'm keen to see what his angle is going to be to go for the defense. Whether he will, similar to the last game, apply pressure to his opponent before those mutas come out and use that as a way to sort of neutralize the pressure from NXZ once he does go for that big flock of mutas, or whether he's going to go for a lot of spores or queens, because he doesn't seem to be preemptively pumping out any anti-air at the moment. Instead, really, he just has been building up quite a lot of lings.
Oh, very nice Bane hit there. NXZ needs to be careful. He does duck back. It looks like RiSky was thinking about doing a bit of aggression there, forcing NXZ into more lings, hopefully maybe forcing the mutas to stay at home and defend. But NXZ
Yes.
has some lings of his own out instead, and he's able to give him the run around a little bit there while he gets the first few mutas out. I think he's got about 7 or 8 coming. And wow, RiSky is actually going to go into his own Spire as NXZ tries to set up this third base.
The mutas are just going to go straight across the map, and there is a couple of additional queens, but I think there's a good enough timing here for NXZ to just utilize a few of these mutas. He needs to be careful. He's actually losing them to a handful of queens while this Zergling attack does go in from RiSky towards NXZ's base, so a bit of a trade back and forth. He's counter-attacking with the mutas in the meanwhile while these lings are attacking from RiSky, but this is very much like probably a dead third base potentially. See how many lings are going to start to flood in from NXZ though.
NX's kind of just let his mutas do whatever they want on the other side of the map with his queens, and unfortunately that means that he has lost 4 of them in that attack. Losing the queens does hurt the production. There's only 2 left, but NXZ's already on the back foot here. There's a lot of lings coming in. He doesn't have much of a grand force of his own yet, and he's starting to lose his own queens. In fact, he has no queens left.
Yeah, they've all been picked off by the lings. The lings are just running havoc, and that's what I was wondering. I was wondering what is the approach going to be from RiSky in response to this, because he wasn't really building a massive amount of anti-air back at home. He wasn't rushing into a Hydra Den or his own Spire that much quicker than his opponent. Instead, he very much has been applying pressure back to NXZ. Like you said, he's picked off a handful of queens. That's really slowed down the injects and the production from NXZ a little bit. And he's picked off quite a few workers, but now you're seeing a bunch more mutas come out for RiSky after he's inflicted this damage, and he's going to be able to utilize those to be able to fight NXZ's flock of mutas. I'm kind of trying to work out who's sort of ahead. Obviously, NXZ's got a much quicker Spire, but this is a lot of muta production for RiSky.
That's exactly the big tell there, is that, see, RiSky has 3 bases and 6 gases going. NXZ doesn't have that extra gas yet, so RiSky has much more mutalisk potential than his opponent. He's already caught up to the muta count, and he's about to take over. He's getting Carapace first as well, so for a little while, NXZ's mutas will have the better upgrades. But I feel like NXZ is a bit stuck on the back foot. He's still having to deal with these ling attacks. He's got his own overlords getting cleaned up as well now. So he just needs to pump that economy a little bit harder and decide how this game is going to proceed. And looks like RiSky may be able to get a little bit more damage here. It does get cleaned up by the mutas. And I tell you what, muta versus muta is a wild thing to watch.
Absolutely, you do see NXZ. He's sort of chasing RiSky back across the map. It seems like he's the one who really wants to take a fight here. The worker count's starting to even up a little bit more as you do see RiSky. Another run by just cleans up a hell of a lot of drones. So it's the caster curse. As soon as I do say that, yeah, RiSky is once again sort of run by with a couple of lings, a handful, and hit a nice timing to be able to pick off some drones. You do see this 4th base coming up for RiSky as well as NXZ. So both players sort of cruising along. I think RiSky is making these small little moves that are giving him slight edges time and time again, though. So I'm waiting for what the response is going to be for NXZ, because he needs to make some of these moves as well himself. And you do see the massive fight coming off the mutaflux right on top of each other.
Oh gosh, RiSky has so many more mutas. I think this might be it for NXZ. He's just committed here into the 4th base and he loses everything. RiSky takes the 2.